I want to say thanks to Great Education Colorado for this honor. I'm humbled by this acknowledgement and thrilled to see some of my family and friends here today. My wife Lindsay's here, my oldest daughter Ivy, my business partners and leadership team from our group of companies, all of whose support has been invaluable to me, both in the business as well as in our collective community efforts. In fact, OfficeScapes, along with our fellow companies here today, Lynx and I2 Construction, have always been committed to operate as a responsible community, corporate citizen in the community. And this was my partner Jim Perry's original vision many years ago. My original interest in community engagement centered first on economic development activity. So our group of companies, with nearly 600 employees, is committed to protect and grow jobs within our company, first of all. And so we depend, like many of you, on a vibrant local economy and a strong overall Colorado job growth, with each job, by the way, supported by a brand new high-quality ergonomic task chair from OfficeScapes. I'm dead-ass serious about that. I quickly saw the inextricable link between a strong local economy and a strong public education system. And while Colorado continues to boast one of the most highly educated workforces in the country, we all know we need to do a better job of producing our own workforce pipeline rather than continually import it from elsewhere. For so many of the years that I've been in Colorado, I've always had a fierce civic pride about our city and our state, even way back when, before I knew anything about what I was talking about. And still today, I'm sort of a walking billboard full of all the little sticky statistics and stories about the Denver area that kind of borders on being annoying in a Cliff Clavin sort of way. And it began in my early days at the Metro Denver EDC, which then grew into a significant level of involvement with the Denver Metro Chamber. I then became involved in an organization called Colorado Succeeds, which is now widely known as a strong coalescing voice of the business community aimed at public education reform and rigor. And I think back, part of my original interest in education at that time stemmed from a belief, naive though it may have been, that education seemed relatively nonpartisan compared to other policy areas. And I can only sort of cynically chuckle today about how much that has changed dramatically and I think unfortunately. Where certain strong, sensible policy improvements, like the Colorado Academic Standards, our Colorado's version of Common Core, has become politicized and now challenged by some of the very same groups that backed its original implementation. Some of us have been befuddled by the extreme voices from the edge of each political spectrum that have become kind of strange bedfellows on some of these issues, albeit for different reasons. As Carrie mentioned, a few years ago I was asked to co-chair with her and Chris Watney the School Finance Partnership, which this is an effort that brought together the education community, the business community, along with policymakers, in an effort to propose recommendations to modernize the still obsolescent and outdated school finance formula in our state. So while I had chaired the EDC Executive Board and was about to chair the Denver Metro Chamber Board, and I think at the time I was currently chairing the Colorado Succeeds Board, the School Finance Partnership was an entirely new experience for me that stands as one of my most interesting and educational and rewarding professional experiences, despite the fact that it led to the overwhelming defeat of Amendment 66, which ultimately asked for too much money with a tax increase structure that splintered the business community and sort of cemented its defeat. And on the heels of that experience, I had the chance to co-chair the Citizens Advisory Committee for the successful Denver Public Schools 2012 bond issue that raised north of $500 million to further build on the important momentum that DPS has built. It gave me a great education on public finance, as well as a unique, close look at some of the challenges our public schools face. And so with all of this activity, and I've spoken lately on this a little bit, I've tried to follow the same life advice that I give my two daughters, which is to sit in the front, raise your hand, engage, and be willing to say yes. And while that's kept my schedule pretty busy and full, it's also enabled some of my most enriching personal and professional experiences. And it was the School Finance Partnership, which is where I came to know more about the great work of Great Ed Colorado, that I learned so many valuable professional and life lessons. One, I learned about the importance of focusing first on shared areas of possible agreement, rather than to immediately retreat to digging in on philosophical differences. Because that immediate retreat stands directly in the way of any chance for any kind of diplomacy or statesmanship to occur. I learned the value of really listening to those that I disagree with on issues. I learned about the need to kind of dive below the shallow, superficial business cocktail party sound bites on these education issues when, in fact, they are quite complex and difficult. Trying to understand, much less explain, the complex entanglement caused by the intersection of Tabor and Gallagher and Amendment 23 is not the kind of thing that's very well understood in a quick one-paragraph cocktail conversation, which is why I'm not nearly as popular at cocktail parties anymore. I still need Kerry Kennedy in the room when I'm talking about Tabor and Gallagher. And finally, I learned the importance of the voice of the business community to be actively engaged at the table. The business community is the customer for the output of public education. For our voice to be credible and constructive, we have to be serious about this. We have to listen and we have to get educated on all sides on the debate of public education. And so my co-chair experience with Kerry and Chris at the School Finance Partnership spawned many enriching new relationships, many of you here today. But one of my favorites may have been the least likely. It was Tony Salazar, who was then a senior leader at the Colorado Education Association. That's the teachers union. Where I had the opportunity to put my advice on listening first to those that you disagree with to work. I've always found it sort of easier to advise others than to sort of practice my own advice. Because as a business owner, there's probably few policy issues where I stand more philosophically opposed than on the presence of organized labor in today's competitive economy. And by the way, many of that audience is here today. And so I sometimes drive the education community crazy a little bit with my incessant overuse, and they would say misuse, of analogies of applying business principles and practices to public education. But Tony and I learned to listen and engage in civil, spirited discourse with a respect at least for the right for each other to hold an opposing view without attacking it as intellectually inferior. And so from all that, I can acknowledge this. I began this journey with kind of the classic insufficiently informed set of superficial biases. Challenge the teachers' union's very existence. Grip the brutal reality of a public education system not producing acceptable results. And drive increased rigor to better compete in the 21st century global economy where the U.S. is losing ground. And where I still hold on to those fundamental views, here's what else I know. I know how many of our kids in public schools across Colorado that are English language learners, trying to learn academic content as they attempt to learn English. Science and math were tough enough for me on their own. Imagine trying to learn difficult curriculum without a solid understanding of the language that's being taught you. I know how many kids come to school from very difficult situations at home, with very little to no supervision, perhaps with no parental oversight at all, who come to school tired and hungry, where the only decent meal they will get that day is at school. I visited a Denver public school, a DPS middle school, like not far from Washington Park in DU, where 70% of the 800 students are on free and reduced lunch, and where 38% are English language learners. I just have to tell you, it is very hard to grip until you go out there and see this. But here's what I thought was interesting. Only 20%, 1 in 5 students at that school have any access at all to any kind of technology outside of school. Now in your home, you have way more than 1 device per person in your household. Think of the role of technology in learning today and the incredible hurdle that so many students in that school face without the technology advantage that you enjoy at home. So it's not a soundbite problem. Business and education and policymakers have to work together, and the legislature should embrace and empower and encourage that. I'm a strong believer in the formation of non-governmental task forces that bring experienced stakeholders from all sides and segments to work on solving tough issues outside kind of the political and legislative constraints, kind of like in a Simpson-Bowles manner or in a school finance partnership manner. So we keep pushing. Relentless pursuit towards improving educational outcomes is really the only way for Colorado to continue to nurture this very precious, vibrant economy we're enjoying, and continuing to evolve as a world-class center for innovation and growth, and continue to be a great place to live and to work and to play. Chelsea, you saw in the video, is really a true hero to me, who I just congratulate on her grit, which, by the way, is the single greatest determinant of success. Sonia Doctorian, the videographer extraordinaire who had the Patience of Job coming out and having to deal with the band. Finally, I just want to say thank you to Great Education Colorado for the grassroots day-to-day efforts you undertake to make this critical issue visible to us all. And thank you all for this very special acknowledgement. I am honored to give my best on behalf of education in Colorado. Thank you.